Welcome, friends. This is the place where we listen, we relax, and we slowly drift towards sleep. I'm your host, Juan, and tonight I'll be guiding you on a soft, cozy journey through fields of autumn gold, gentle rain, and one very tiny, very curious little rabbit. So settle in. Let your breathing slow. Maybe you're lying beneath a blanket, or just watching the rain outside your window. Wherever you are, let the world get a little quieter, and let's follow the sound of raindrops into the heart of a small, sleepy field. The morning began with the softest sigh. Not thunder, not wind, just that quiet, silvery hush that happens when the first raindrops remember how to fall. Outside, the field stretched for miles. A golden sea of fading autumn light, now wrapped in mist. The air smelled of wet grass and old leaves. Every sound was soft, the kind of soft that makes you breathe slower without even noticing. And somewhere, tucked between tall stalks of wild barley and clover, a tiny field rabbit blinked awake. Her name was Willow. She was small enough to fit beneath a curled fern leaf, and soft enough to look like a moving patch of the field itself. Willow yawned, a small, silent yawn, and then lifted her head, twitching her nose toward the scent of rain. It was cool and fresh, like the world had just washed its face. A drop landed right between her ears. She flinched. Then another one touched her nose, and she sneezed. A tiny hoop sound that startled a nearby cricket into hopping 3 blades away. Willow giggled, or something close to it, a small, squeaky chirp that melted into the rain. She had never seen rain like this before. All summer long, the sky had been full of heat and dust. The ground had cracked in places, and the grass had turned dry and pale. But now everything shimmered. Raindrops clung to the tips of wheat like glass beads, and each blade of grass bowed under their weight, glittering whenever the clouds shifted. She stepped out of her burrow, careful not to slip in the damp soil. The mud squished between her paws, cold, a little sticky, but not unpleasant. Willow wriggled her toes and looked around, ears twitching at every sound. The low hum of wind through the reeds, the distant call of a crow, and the soft patter of rain kissing the earth. "Hello?" she whispered. Her voice was small, but the rain seemed to hear her. It answered with another gentle patter, like 1,000 tiny paws tapping the ground in greeting. Willow smiled. She liked that answer. She hopped a little farther, her tiny prints forming a trail behind her. And the farther she went, the more the world seemed to wake up. A hedgehog peeked out from under a curled log. A pair of sparrows shook rain from their feathers. And a frog, half asleep in a puddle, croaked as if to say, "Good morning, whoever you are." Willow stopped near a small puddle of her own. It shimmered like a tiny mirror, catching the gray light from above. When she leaned closer, she saw her reflections and gasped. The water made her look different. Her fur looked darker, her eyes brighter, like a tiny hero from a storybook she didn't know she was in. For a long while she just stared. Not because she recognized herself, but because she almost didn't. The rain had changed everything, and somehow that made her brave. She lifted her head, looked toward the open field, and whispered softly, "I think I'll go see what's out there." The wind brushed against her ears as if to say, "Yes, little one, go." So she went. Through the tall grass, past the puddles that rippled like sleepy eyes, and into the heart of the autumn rain. Every few hops she stopped to listen, and every time she did, she heard something new. The rhythm of drops on hollow bark, the distant coo of a dove, the whisper of leaves tumbling from a branch. It was as if the whole field was singing, and the song was only for her. By midday the rain had softened even more. The air felt thick with warmth and earth. Willow found a small rise in the ground, a safe little hill, and curled up beneath a bramble to rest. She watched as the raindrops turned smaller, lighter, until they became nothing more than a fine mist. The field shimmered like a dream, and in that soft, glimmering quiet, Willow felt something she hadn't known before. A calm, safe kind of belonging. The rain wasn't something to hide from. It was something to walk through, something to listen to, something to trust. As her eyelids grew heavy, she whispered to the sky, "Thank you for finding me." And before the last drops faded, the tiny rabbit fell asleep, cradled by the heartbeat of the rain. When Willow woke again, the rain had stopped. The world around her was wrapped in that beautiful hush that only comes after a storm, the kind of quiet where even the air seems to listen. Everything sparkled. Every leaf, every blade of grass, every cobweb was strung with 1,000 drops of silver. The sky had turned pale blue again, thin and gentle like a sheet of silk stretched across the world. Willow yawned, her whiskers twitching. She stretched one paw, then the other, and peeked out from beneath the bramble she'd used for shelter. The earth was soft, damp, and smelled faintly of moss. The puddles had shrunk into tiny, glittering mirrors scattered across the field. She blinked. The world looked new, as if someone had quietly repainted it while she slept. "Good morning again," she whispered, even though she wasn't sure who she was talking to. And somewhere, faintly, the field answered. A low hum of wind through the stems, the faint tick of drops still falling from the last brave leaf. Willow took a step forward, her paws leaving tiny crescents in the mud. She was thinking about breakfast, perhaps a bit of clover or a stray berry, when she heard it. A sound. Not rain, not wind, and something snuffly, small and uneven. She froze. The grass rustled. Something round and brown was pushing through the stems, muttering softly under its breath. Then it appeared, a hedgehog, a rather damp, rather sleepy-looking hedgehog, with a leaf stuck to his back and mud between his spines. Willow tilted her head. "Hello," she said gently. The hedgehog jumped, almost rolling into a ball. Oh dear, who said that?" "Me," Willow replied, stepping into the light. "Down here." The hedgehog blinked, then blinked again. "Oh, a rabbit." "Goodness, you're tiny." Willow smiled shyly. "You're very round." The hedgehog let out a bashful little snort. "I suppose I am." He shook himself, sending tiny droplets everywhere. "I'm Hazel. I live under the oak stump by the creek. Or I did before it flooded." "Flooded?" Willow asked. He sighed. "The rain came faster than I expected. My bed's all soggy now. I'm looking for a dry patch to nap in before night." Willow thought for a moment, ears twitching. "I know a dry place," she said softly. "There's a hollow under that bramble where I slept. It's still warm." Hazel looked surprised. "You'd share it with me?" Willow nodded. "It's cozier when someone else is breathing nearby." The hedgehog smiled, or at least his version of a smile, which was mostly a squint and a wiggle of the nose. "That's very kind. But before I sleep again, I'd like to walk a bit. Everything smells so new after the rain." Willow's nose wriggled in agreement. "Let's walk together." And so they did. They wandered side by side through the golden field where the late afternoon sun had begun to spill across the wet grass. It wasn't the harsh sunlight of summer. It was soft, honey-colored, full of slow warmth. Willow hopped ahead, her fur glinting like chestnut velvet. Hazel waddled behind, making quiet crunching sounds on the fallen leaves. They passed by tiny mushrooms wearing drops of rain like crowns, by a snail tracing its silver path across a rock, and by a family of field mice busy drying their tails on a patch of moss. "Everything looks brighter after it rains," Hazel murmured. "It's like the world took a bath," Willow said, smiling. Hazel chuckled, a low, sleepy sound. "I suppose it did. The earth does love a good rinse." The path ahead sloped gently upward, leading to a little hill that looked over the whole field. From up there the world unfolded in every direction, gold and green and russet, stretching all the way to the far-off trees that marked the edge of the forest. Willow stood still, her ears catching the soft wind. "It's so big," she whispered. "I never knew the world was this big." Hazel nodded, his tiny black eyes glimmering. "It always feels small when you stay in one place too long. Then the rain comes, washes everything clean, and suddenly, it's new again." Willow thought about that. She had never left her burrow for more than a few hops before, but today felt different. The rain had made her brave, and not loud brave, but quiet brave. The kind that hums in your chest instead of shouting in your head. She looked at Hazel. "Do you think there's more beyond those trees?" He followed her gaze. "Oh, I imagine so. There's always more. But sometimes the best adventures happen right where you are, if you just pay attention." Willow smiled softly. That sounded true. The wind shifted, carrying the smell of wet bark and apples from a distant orchard. The sky was deepening now, the soft gold sliding into lavender. Hazel yawned, his spines bristling. "I think I'll take that nap now." Willow nodded. "Come on. The bramble's not far." They turned back, the path glowing faintly beneath the setting sun. Their shadows stretched long and thin across the damp ground. A small rabbit and a sleepy hedgehog, walking home through the field that still remembered the rain. By the time they reached the bramble, the sky had gone dusky blue. Willow nudged a few dry leaves into a nest. Hazel curled up beside her, already half asleep. Outside, the crickets began to sing. The stars started showing through the thinning clouds. Quiet, steady lights over a freshly washed world. Willow rested her head on her paws and watched one star flicker. "Good night, Hazel," she whispered. Hazel murmured. "Already dreaming." Willow smiled, and the rain that had once woken her now hummed again. Softly, far away, a lullaby beneath the autumn sky. The next morning began in a hush of silver light. Willow woke to the soft sound of dew falling. Not rain this time, but tiny droplets sliding from the edges of leaves and blades. The air was cool and still, wrapped in that gentle mist that only comes in early autumn mornings. Beside her, Hazel the hedgehog was still asleep, curled into the shape of a very round pebble. His tiny snores puffed like little sighs through the quiet. Willow smiled. She didn't want to wake him, so she stretched, nibbled a stray clover leaf, and hopped out from beneath the bramble. The field looked different today, lighter somehow. The rain had washed everything clean, and now the sun, soft and low, was warming the earth again. The sky was the palest blue, and the breeze smelled faintly of apples and wood smoke. Somewhere far off, someone, maybe a farmer, maybe just the wind, had started a small fire to dry wet hay. The smoke rose in lazy curls that caught the sunlight and made the horizon shimmer. Willow felt that quiet hum again in her chest, the one she'd felt when she'd first walked into the rain. the feeling of more. She turned toward the far edge of the field, toward the place where the gold of the grass met the shadow of the trees. That forest had always been a mystery to her. From her burrow it had looked like a dark wall, full of rustling sounds and secrets too deep to name. But now after the rain it looked softer, gentler, like it was inviting her to step closer. Willow hesitated. She looked back at Hazel, still dreaming beneath the bramble. Then she looked forward again, at the mist curling between the trees. "I'll only peek," she whispered to herself. "Just a tiny peek." And with that she began to hop. The grass grew taller as she went, brushing against her sides like cool fingers. The sunlight shimmered between the stalks, catching on each drop of dew. Every step made a faint swish, and every breath she took carried the scent of pine and earth. When she reached the edge, she stopped. The forest waited before her, a soft green-brown maze of trunks and ferns, with shafts of light falling through the leaves like quiet ladders. The ground was carpeted in fallen gold and copper leaves. It looked like the forest was wearing autumn as a blanket. Willow stepped forward. One paw, then another. The sound changed immediately, from the open hush of the field to the low whisper of trees. She could hear water somewhere, a stream maybe, and the faint creak of branches above her. It wasn't scary. It was ancient, like the forest had been dreaming for a very long time and had just noticed her there. She hopped a little deeper. Sunlight flickered over her fur. The air was cooler, but it wrapped around her like a calm voice saying, "You're safe here." A squirrel darted up a nearby trunk, its tail flashing like a flame. It paused to look at her, eyes wide. "Good morning," Willow said politely. The squirrel chattered, half curious, half amused. "Morning to you. Not often we get rabbits in this part of the woods." "I just wanted to see what it's like," she said, shy but honest. The squirrel twitched its nose. "It's like this," he said simply, and scampered higher until he vanished into the leaves. Willow smiled. She liked that answer. She wandered for a while, exploring tiny clearings where mushrooms grew in perfect circles, and patches of moss that felt like soft blankets under her paws. The forest had its own rhythm, slower, deeper, older than the field. Every now and then she thought she heard faint music, not from any creature, but from the way the wind moved through the branches. It was a low hum, a tune that seemed to rise and fall with her heartbeat. Then in the middle of a small clearing she saw it, a puddle, or maybe a pool, perfectly round, perfectly still. The surface was so smooth it looked like a piece of glass. Leaves floated on top like tiny boats. Willow stepped closer and peered into it. At first she saw her reflection again, small, curious, damp around the paws. But then the reflection shifted. The water shimmered, rippled once, when instead of herself she saw a faint glow deep below the surface. It wasn't bright, just a soft light, like the memory of a candle. She blinked. The glow pulsed once as if breathing, then faded. Willow's heart fluttered. She stepped back, her tiny chest rising and falling fast. But then she smiled. Not scared, just amazed. The forest wasn't dark after all. It was alive in ways she hadn't known to look for. A breeze stirred the leaves, and a few golden ones drifted down, spinning slowly. One landed right on her head. She laughed softly. Maybe the forest just wanted to say hello, she said. Behind her she heard a familiar shuffle, slow and drowsy. Hazel had followed. There you are, he said with a sleepy grin. I turned around and you were gone. Willow giggled. I just wanted to peek. Hazel looked around at the trees, then at the glowing pool, then back at her. Well, he said, if this is a peek, I'd hate to see what your adventures look like. Willow smiled shyly. I think I just wanted to see what else the rain made beautiful. Hazel nodded. And did you find it? She looked around, at the moss, the trees, the drifting golden leaves. Then she nodded. I think it's everywhere, the hedgehog sighed happily. Then that's a fine thing to find. They sat together by the pool for a while, listening to the forest breathe. And for a long time neither spoke. There was no need. The sun began to sink again, the light turning warmer, richer. The world outside the trees glowed like an ember. Willow leaned against a patch of moss, eyelids growing heavy. Hazel curled beside her, muttering something about supper and dreams. And as the forest dimmed around them, the soft hum returned. The same gentle tune that had followed the rain. The song of things waking quietly after being washed new. The forest grew quieter as the sun sank lower. Not silent, never silent, but softer, like every sound had learned how to whisper. The wind had slowed. The leaves no longer rustled. They murmured. And in that hush the world began to hum again, a low, steady tune that seemed to come from the ground itself. Willow and Hazel sat by the glowing pool, the light of it flickering faintly on their fur. Hazel yawned. Do you hear that? Willow nodded slowly. It's like music. The hedgehog tilted his head. Maybe it's frogs. No, Willow said softly. It's different. It feels like the forest is singing. They sat still, listening. The sound wasn't made of notes, not really. It was more like movement. The creak of roots stretching, the gentle sigh of moss when the wind brushed over it, the tiny droplets falling from high branches onto leaves below. Each sound joined the next, until the whole forest breathed together, a quiet, endless lullaby. Hazel closed his eyes. If I weren't awake, I'd think I was dreaming this. Willow smiled. Maybe we're both half dreaming. She stood, padding toward the edge of the clearing. The moss felt cool beneath her paws, damp and alive. Every step made the hum a little stronger. Not louder, but deeper. It pulsed gently in time with her heartbeat. The forest light had changed too. It was no longer just the sun filtering through leaves. It was softer, golden and green mixed together, as if the trees themselves glowed from within. Hazel, Willow whispered, come see this. He waddled over, grumbling a little but curious all the same. Willow pointed with her nose, ahead where the trees formed a kind of archway. The leaves there shimmered faintly, moving even though there was no wind. It looks like it's breathing, Hazel said, half in awe. Willow nodded. I think it wants us to go through, Hazel blinked. The forest wants things? She thought about it for a moment. Maybe not like we do, but it listens. Maybe sometimes it speaks too. Hazel huffed softly. Well, if the forest starts talking, I hope it's polite. But even as he said it, he followed. They walked slowly through the archway. The light grew warmer still, and a faint mist curled around their feet. It wasn't cold. It felt like breathing through a dream. Beyond the arch, they entered a grove unlike any they'd seen. The trees were wider here, older. Their roots twined like sleeping animals. And right at the center stood a small stone, round and moss-covered, glowing faintly from within. Willow froze. That's where the song is coming from. The sound was clearer now. A pulse, steady and calm, like a heartbeat in the soil. Hazel squinted. What do you think it is? I don't know, Willow said, stepping closer. But it doesn't feel scary. She placed one paw on the mossy stone. It was warm. The hum rose slightly, and for a brief second, everything around them shimmered. The leaves, the light, even the air. Willow felt something inside her chest open. Not like fear, not like surprise, but like recognition. The warmth spread through her tiny body, and she suddenly remembered the feeling of that first rain, the way it had made the world new, the way it had washed away the smallness of everything. She looked up at Hazel, her eyes wide and soft. It's the same, she said quietly. The rain and this. They're the same, Hazel blinked. The same how? They both wake things, she said. They remind the world it's alive. The hedgehog looked around, at the trees swaying gently, at the light pooling on the forest floor. I suppose, he murmured, that's a pretty nice thing to be reminded of. For a while they just stood there. The forest breathed. The light pulsed softly, and the song went on, slow and endless like the rhythm of time itself. Then from somewhere high above a drop of water fell, the last remnant of yesterday's rain. It landed right on Willow's nose. She blinked, then giggled. The sound of her laugh joined the hum, and for a heartbeat the forest seemed to echo it, a gentle ripple through the leaves, as if the world itself were smiling back. Hazel chuckled too. Well, he said, stretching his little legs, that was a fine bit of magic for one afternoon. Willow nodded. Do you think it'll always be here? Hazel looked up through the canopy. The sky beyond was streaked with soft pink now, the beginning of sunset. Maybe, he said. But even if it isn't, we'll remember it. And that's almost the same as keeping it. Willow thought about that as they turned to leave the grove. The archway behind them shimmered again, then faded into stillness like a door closing softly, without sound. As they stepped back into the golden light of the forest edge, the song began to fade too, not disappearing, just quieting, until it was only a memory inside their hearts. Willow took one last look back. The grove was still, peaceful, and somewhere deep in her chest the hum still lingered, a reminder that the world was full of songs if you just listened softly enough. They walked home through the long shadows of evening. The mist thinned, the air grew cooler, sweeter, and as the first star appeared above the treetops, Willow whispered, "Thank you." Hazel glanced over. "For what?" "For bringing me here," he chuckled. "You're the one who wandered off." Willow smiled. "Then maybe thank you for following." The hedgehog grinned sleepily. "You're welcome, little wanderer." And together, under the slow glowing rise of the moon, they followed the path back toward the field, their tiny footprints fading behind them, but their hearts still carrying the soft song beneath the trees. By the time Willow and Hazel stepped out of the forest, the world had changed again. The rain scent had faded to something gentler. Damp grass, clean air, and the faint sweetness of wet earth cooling under the sky. The last of the clouds were drifting away, torn into silver ribbons by the wind. And there, right above the wide, quiet field, hung the moon, huge, soft, and glowing, like someone had left a lantern burning just for them. Willow stopped to stare. It was so bright it turned the puddles into little mirrors, each one catching the light and holding it like treasure. Hazel puffed his cheeks and sighed. "Well," he said, "I suppose this is the part where we get sleepy." Willow giggled. "You always get sleepy when the moon comes out." Because it's polite, Hazel muttered. Night means rest. That's the rule. They started walking again, slowly, their paws making tiny wet prints in the glimmering field. The air was cool enough to make Willow's fur fluff out, and she didn't mind. It felt like the whole world had tucked itself under a big, quiet blanket. The crickets had begun to sing again. A single owl hooted somewhere far away, and in between those sounds and that perfect kind of in-between, you could almost hear the forest song still humming in the distance. Willow looked up. Do you think the forest can see the moon too? Hazel blinked. Of course it can. Trees are tall, taller than us anyway. I mean, Willow said softly, do you think it notices the way it noticed the rain? Hazel thought about that for a long moment. Then he said, maybe the forest dreams when the moon is out. Willow smiled. I like that. They reached a small hill, the same one they'd run across the morning the rain began. Now it was calm again, the grass slick with dew and shining like threads of silver. Willow hopped up to the top and sat, gazing across the field. Everything was glowing, and the puddles, the flowers, even the distant fence posts. It all shimmered faintly, as if the moonlight had dipped the whole world in milk. Hazel joined her, a little slower, and plopped down beside her with a satisfied grunt. The two sat quietly for a while. A breeze drifted by, soft and cool. Willow's ears twitched as it passed. She tilted her head toward Hazel. Do you think the rain will come back tomorrow? Hazel shrugged. Maybe, maybe not. But even if it doesn't, the world won't forget it came. Willow nodded, smiling faintly. Then she said something barely above a whisper. It's funny. When it rained, everything felt alive. Now it's calm again, but it doesn't feel empty. It feels like it's still breathing, and just slower. Hazel's eyes were half closed. That's what night does. It lets the world rest its eyes. Willow giggled softly. You sound like an old owl. Maybe I'm wise now, he murmured sleepily. Spent too much time listening to singing rocks. They both laughed quietly. Then the laughter faded, replaced by the soft hum of night, the sound of wind brushing through grass, the quiet rhythm of Hazel's breathing beside her. Willow lay down, her little paws tucked beneath her chin. Above them, the moonlight shimmered across the clouds, slow and steady like the heartbeat of the sky. She thought about the rain, the forest song, the warm stone beneath her paw, and how everything, even the smallest things, seemed to be part of one big, gentle pattern. Maybe, she thought, the world isn't something you look at. Maybe it's something you listen to. The thought made her feel warm inside. She yawned, her eyelids heavy now. Good night, Hazel, she murmured. Good night, Willow, came the drowsy reply. Dream about whatever rabbits dream about. I will, she whispered, smiling. And you dream about polite forests. He chuckled softly, then fell quiet. The crickets kept singing. The moon drifted a little higher. And soon, both of them were asleep. Two tiny shapes in the silver field, safe beneath the quiet sky. Their dreams carrying the last echo of the forest's song. The first light of dawn came quietly. Not with color, not yet. But with that pale, silvery glow that creeps gently over the edge of the world. The field was still. The air held the cool breath of night, and the moon had just begun to fade, slipping behind the clouds as if it didn't want to wake anyone. Willow stirred first. She stretched her paws, blinked the sleep from her eyes, and felt the world humming softly beneath her. It wasn't rain this time. It was the steady, slow heartbeat of morning. Beside her, Hazel was snoring in the gentlest way possible. Tiny, squeaky breaths that made the grass near his nose tremble. Willow smiled and let him sleep. She sat up, ears twitching. The world was wrapped in mist again. But it was a new kind of mist, lighter, warmer, touched by sunlight. And when she looked closer, she saw something beautiful. The raindrops that had fallen the night before hadn't disappeared. They'd stayed, clinging to every leaf, every stem, every blade of grass. And now, as the sun slowly stretched across the sky, those drops caught the light and began to sparkle. It looked as though the whole field had been dusted with diamonds. Willow gasped softly. "Oh," she whispered. The rain left its stars behind. For a long time, she just sat there, watching the light shift and glitter, listening to the waking sounds of the world. The first bird calling from the hedgerow, the soft flutter of wings, the quiet rustle of a mouse darting through clover. Hazel finally stirred. He blinked up at the sky and squinted. "Too bright," he mumbled. Then, noticing the sparkle around them, he froze. "Oh, is it snowing?" Willow giggled. "No, silly. It's the rain still shining." Hazel yawned, rubbing his tiny eyes. "Well," he said, "the rain did a fine job then. It made everything new." He wasn't wrong. The trees along the edge of the forest looked greener than before. The air smelled fresher, and even the dirt beneath their paws felt soft and alive again. Willow hopped to the edge of the hill and looked toward the forest. It waited there, still and dark and full of secrets. But now it didn't seem mysterious or scary. It seemed like home. She turned to Hazel. "Do you think we'll hear the forest song again?" Hazel grinned. "Maybe tonight. If we listen carefully." Willow nodded. "Then we'll come back." The two stood quietly, watching the sunlight climb higher, each beam melting the mist into golden air. Somewhere far away, a brook was singing, soft, steady, like a continuation of the rain's melody. And in that moment the world felt whole again. The rain had come. It had changed everything, then slipped away, leaving behind its gentle magic. Willow took a deep breath. Her fur glowed in the morning light, and her heart felt full, not with adventure, but with peace. The kind of peace that comes from knowing the world is still kind, still soft, still full of quiet wonders waiting beneath every raindrop. Hazel shuffled beside her. "Well," he said, "if it rains again, we'll be ready." Willow smiled. "Yes, next time we'll dance in it." Hazel blinked sleepily. "Dance?" She nodded. "With the forest, with the rain, with everything." Hazel gave a small, thoughtful hum. "I'll bring my leaf hat then." Willow laughed, a sound so light that even the breeze carried it gently away. The sun had risen fully now, turning the last bits of dew into tiny sparks of gold. And as they began their slow walk back toward the burrows, the world behind them shimmered, a soft glowing memory of rain and warmth, of friendship and morning light. The day would go on, and the rain would come again someday. But for now, the little field rabbit and her sleepy hedgehog friend walked quietly through the golden autumn grass, bathed in sunshine, carrying the song of the rain in their hearts. And that's where we'll leave them tonight. Two tiny friends curled up beneath the morning sun, the rain song still echoing softly in their dreams. The world around them hums with calm, the kind of quiet that only comes after the rain has told its story. If you listen closely, you might still hear it too. That soft patter somewhere far away, reminding you that peace can be gentle and wonder can be small. So now take a slow, deep breath. Feel the air move in and out. Let the noise of the day fade. Every thought, every worry, every sound, all melting into the same hush that holds Willow and Hazel safe. The field is quiet now. The rain is resting. The stars are waiting for their turn, and you can rest too. Drift softly, dream kindly, and remember, even the smallest hearts can hold the biggest kind of peace. Good night, from the field.